The King's Avatar, Chapter 1605 An Undeserving Pay. Audio source, wushaworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 1605, An Undeserving Pay. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Du Ming's in really good condition today. Be careful, Yi Shu said to Fang Rui. In better condition than me. Fang Rui scoffed. Ha, Yi Shu laughed. What's ha supposed to mean? Fang Rui could feel the disdain from Yi Shu's laugh. You're getting paid the most out of all of us. Please, Yi Shu said. Care. Fang Rui wasn't going to fall for Yi Shu's trap. He turned around and headed towards the stage. However, his actions didn't match his thoughts. Yi Shu wasn't wrong. He was the highest paid player on Happy, and it wasn't even close. But ever since the playoffs began, what had he been able to accomplish? He hadn't been completely useless, of course, but not being completely useless wasn't really deserving of having the highest pay on the team. The core player on the team was usually the highest paid player. Fang Rui knew that he wasn't the core. Even so, he should at least be a deciding factor in the matches to correspond with that pay. But what had he been able to do thus far? He had only been a bit of use in the playoffs. Wei Chen, who was practically a dying grandpa in the pro scene, had more highlights than him. There was also Luo Ji, a college student who barely even played in the regular season. All of them had made plays that had won the team the game. As for him, he couldn't compare with Yi Shu, fine. But not being able to compare with a young rookie and an elderly grandpa? What's going on? Fang Rui asked himself. In particular, in their third and final game against Tyranny, he had been carried by his teammates to victory. He had been extremely unhappy with his performance. He had been hoping to redeem himself against Samsara. In their first game against Samsara, he had been Happy's third player in the group arena. In the end, he had lost to Sun Xiang, who had been Samsara's third player as well. In the team competition, he continued to perform like he was just a placeholder in the team. The deepest impression that people got from him that match was when he was killed. What am I doing? He had repeatedly underperformed during the playoffs. Fang Rui felt like he should have already lost his position. However, Fang Rui continued to send him up. The team's trust in him only made him feel more pressured. I have to change. What do I need to do? Fang Rui said to himself as he came across Su Mucheng. Be careful. He's in really good condition today. Su Mucheng said to him. Fuck, are you two colluding? Fang Rui replied. What? Su Mucheng was a bit confused but quickly realized that someone must have said something similar to Fang Rui, and she knew who that someone was. As if there was any need to collude. Su Mucheng chuckled. Fang Rui was speechless. True. It was pretty obvious that Du Ming was playing really well today. How could Yi Shu and Su Mucheng not be able to tell? The two were just reminding him and also worrying for him. Relax, Fang Rui smiled at Su Mucheng. I, Fang Rui, am worthy of my name. Ha, Su Mucheng laughed. Ha, what ha? You're becoming more and more like him, do you know that? Fang Rui cursed. Good luck. Su Mucheng didn't bother bickering with Fang Rui. Do you mind grabbing me some hot water? I'm going to need a drink after I beat him. Fang Rui waved his arms. Then, he turned around and continued to walk towards the stage. He entered the player booth, sucked in a deep breath, swiped his account card, and loaded into the game. The seventh round of the group arena. Happy's fourth player, Fang Rui, versus Samsara's fourth player, Du Ming. Don't block my way. Quote. As soon as the match began, Fang Rui immediately yelled out into the chat. Don't block my way. Du Ming wasn't going to be outdone. Moon luring Frost rushed out. Come. Fang Rui shouted. Boundless Sea ran around in a circle twice and then crouched down, hiding behind the closest stalagmite. The crowd went into an uproar. That was the Fang Rui that everyone knew. Saying such bravado and doing something else wasn't a feat that just anyone could accomplish. Du Ming's moon-luring frost didn't use the terrain to hide himself as he moved this time. He went straight for the center of the map. As for Fang Rui's Boundless Sea, he just crouched down behind a stalagmite as if he were bored to death. From time to time, he would type into the chat, "Are you here yet? Why are you so slow?" It had been such an intense match so far, but now that the lazy Fang Rui had come, it was like an eggplant wilting from the frost. The Samsara fans felt like their energy was being sapped. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Fang Rui had completely ruined the tense atmosphere in the stadium. The peak-level match had suddenly turned into an in-game 1v1 in the Glory Arena. "I'm here. Where are you?" Quote. After Du Ming's moon-luring frost reached the center of the map, he replied in the chat. It looked like he was quite familiar with Fang Rui's personality. You could never believe Fang Rui's words. Moon-luring frost looked around and then continued forward towards Happy's spawn point. "I'm too tired to move. I'm waiting at the spawn point." Fang Rui replied. "Just wait there, so I can hurry up and finish this." Du Ming said. Moon-luring frost continued to push forward. However, this time, he didn't move in a straight line. Instead, he did the same as when he played against Su Mucheng. He chose to use the terrain to move around covertly. If you're in such a hurry, why not just GG? Fang Rui asked. The crowd went in an uproar again. Enough of this bullshit. Can't you be more serious? A lot of people didn't like how unprofessional Fang Rui was. Samsara started mass booing for the first time, all towards Fang Rui. Fang Rui couldn't hear them. He continued to talk nonsense. On the other hand, Du Ming's moon-luring frost was getting closer and closer. But because Fang Rui hadn't done anything since the start of the fight, Du Ming had no way of knowing where Fang Rui was. Was Boundless Sea hiding behind one of these stalagmites? Du Ming didn't move rashly. The home team players knew better than the away team players on how to use the map. Moon-lure frost quietly moved towards a stalagmite. He didn't overlook the possibility that Boundless Sea would happen to be hiding behind it. As a result, he put up his guard as he charged towards it. There was no one there. His lightsaber, lingering ice, hit nothing but air. Du Ming wasn't concerned. He went towards this stalagmite and suddenly jumped. 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps, 4 jumps. He went up and down 4 times before finally reaching the top of the stalagmite. But it wasn't like the stalagmite was that tall. If he couldn't see anyone before, he still wouldn't be able to see anyone. Du Ming's moon-luring frost didn't even look around. He stared straight at another stalagmite that was close by. Jump. Moon-luring frost jumped towards that stalagmite. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1606. You shouldn't have tried to play dirty in front of me. Audio source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1606. You shouldn't have tried to play dirty in front of me. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. This distance. The audience felt their hearts jump. The stalagmites scattered around the cave weren't arranged densely together. Most of the time, the distance between them was too far to cover in a single jump. Du Ming had chosen 2 relatively close stalagmites, but it seemed a bit sketchy. Was he going to make it? Moon-luring frost fell from the air. It didn't seem like he would make it. The Samsara fans had already started crying out in alarm. Then, they saw moon-luring frost take a step in the air. His foot landed on the stalagmite, and with a push, he was able to bring his entire body over onto it. Applause. Even though it had just been a normal jump, that final step made it seem like he had just barely made it. The fans couldn't help but cheer out of joy. With a new view of his surroundings, Du Ming quickly looked around, but Boundless Sea was nowhere to be seen. In the meantime, the viewers also took a look, paying attention to any nearby stalagmites. Apart from going back the way he came, it didn't seem like there was any other stalagmite he could jump to. Moon-luring Frost could take a step in the air, but he couldn't take 2 steps, could he? The normal players could tell that this time, there was no way he could jump to any other stalagmite. However, Du Ming didn't seem to have noticed. Moon-luring Frost turned and went for a stalagmite that was clearly too far away. This time, not only did their hearts jump along with Moon-luring Frost's jump, the crowd went straight for cries of alarm. There was no way he would reach it. He would land in front of it, and his view would then be blocked. Moon-luring Frost faced the stalagmite squarely, showing his determination. But in the game, jumping power was a number. Determination wouldn't change anything. Then, they noticed that although Moon-luring Frost was facing the stalagmite, he was jumping slightly off-center. This is the audience able to immediately figure out Du Ming's goal using their omniscient view of the map. There was a stalactite hanging down from the ceiling. He wanted to jump off this stalactite to make a second jump, which would make it possible for him to reach the intended stalagmite. That was exactly what happened. Moon-luring Frost went for the stalactite first. He pushed off of it and then jumped gently onto the new stalagmite. After seeing this jump, the audience immediately started paying attention to the stalactites, realizing that there were actually a lot of them that he could use. This sort of jump might be a bit tricky for normal players to successfully perform, but there was no way a pro player would make a mistake at something as fundamental as this. With a new view of his surroundings, Du Ming once again looked around, but he still didn't see Boundless Sea. However, the audience knew that if continued searching, he would find Fang Rui's Boundless Sea in the next try if he was lucky. By choosing the stalagmite where Boundless Sea was hiding behind, he would end up positioned right above Boundless Sea. Everyone was eager to see this ambush happen, particularly when the one being ambushed was the master of playing dirty. Du Ming was looking for where to go next. All of the Samsara fans were filled with hope. At this point, the happy fans were starting to question Fang Rui's inaction. How was he supposed to win if he just sat there doing nothing? Du Ming finally picked a stalagmite. The crowd immediately started clapping excitedly. Not only was Du Ming playing amazing today, his luck was out of this world. There had been 4 stalagmites that he could have jumped to, and he happened to pick the one that Boundless Sea was hiding at. If that wasn't luck, what was it? Jump. Moon-luring Frost jumped off a stalactite and then landed gently onto his destination. From start to finish, no sound had been made. He could already see Boundless Sea crouching behind the stalagmite. As if afraid to startle Fang Rui, the stadium suddenly went silent. The Samsara fans seemed to have put themselves in Du Ming's situation. Du Ming had to be carefully and quietly make his move. Coming. Moon-luring Frost stepped off the top of the stalagmite and suddenly dropped down. His sword descended, leaving an arc of pale blue light. As for Boundless Sea, everyone quickly looked towards him. Boundless Sea had moved the moment Moon-luring Frost had taken the step. Fang Rui's Boundless Sea suddenly got up and stepped away calmly, dodging Moon-luring Frost's attack. Boundless Sea slowly turned his head to look at the sword light flashing in front of him. Du Ming was alarmed. He didn't think he had made any noise. He also didn't see Boundless Sea look up. How had Fang Rui known that he had attacked? Du Ming's attack had missed, and now, Fang Rui could take advantage of it to launch an attack of his own. Qi Masters were a powerful mid-ranged class. They were quite threatening at close range, but not in comparison to the other three fighter classes. By pulling away, he would be able to effortlessly take advantage of the opening, and there was nowhere for Du Ming's moon-luring frost to run to. Boundless Sea had already started gathering qi, ready to attack. I have to act before I land. Even though he had no idea how Fang Rui had noticed him, it wasn't the time to ponder over it. His ambush had failed, and he needed to quickly do something before he got caught by Fang Rui's counter-attack. He didn't have many options though. All he could do was try to make it harder for Fang Rui. As a result, moon-luring frost gently twisted his body. His movements need to be very minute so that it looked natural. He also needed to do it before he landed on the ground. Du Ming wanted to push off the stalagmite so that he could attack first. But moon-luring frost had only just moved a tiny bit, when Boundless Sea pushed out his palms. Dragon Wave. The wave of qi was filled with killing intent. This skill could be controlled after it was shot out. Du Ming could no longer bother with making his movements subtle. Moon-luring frost straightened his body in a panic and jumped off of the stalagmite. His gaze was locked onto Boundless Sea. However, Du Ming discovered that he had no way to attack him. All the attacks that he could make were sealed off completely by Dragon Wave. Everything had been within Fang Rui's expectations. Could he dodge this Dragon Wave? Moon-luring frost didn't have any place he could jump off of anymore. If he wanted to dodge while in the air, he could only rely on a skill. He saw the Dragon Wave roaring towards moon-luring frost. He had to act immediately. Falling light blade. Sword light flashed. Moon-luring frost dropped straight down. The Dragon Wave wouldn't be able to keep up with falling light blade. But Boundless Sea could. Noticing that Du Ming had his attention on Dragon Wave, Fang Rui had Boundless Sea rush forward. Dragon Wave. He had abandoned control over it. Wuxia-World-Audio.com. Boundless Sea gathered a new wave of qi. Not waiting for moon-luring frost's falling light blade to land, he threw the qi at him. Du Ming finally had no options left. Flash burst. Boundless Sea struck moon-luring frost with his palm. The falling light blade was interrupted. Qi violently blossomed, sending moon-luring frost flying back. Du Ming lost control of his character, and the previous Dragon Wave hit to him as well. Fang Rui had chained these two skills to perform a pincer attack from the front and the back. The damage dealt by Flash Burst couldn't be underestimated. Dragon Wave's effect was annoying. The target hit by it would have decreased attack speed and attack power for a period of time. Moon-luring frost flew back to where he came from towards that stalagmite. Boundless Sea didn't give chase. Instead, he began gathering qi again. What was coming next? Sky-piercing strike. Boundless Sea pushed out with his two palms. The gathered qi swallowed the airborne moon-luring frost. Du Ming couldn't attend to what was behind or what was in front. The sky-piercing strike made moon-luring frost crash even harder into the stalagmite. The force of the impact was quite heavy. Bits of sand broke off from the stalagmite and fell. Du Ming was stunned. He realized how Fang Rui had noticed him. It turned out that his silent jumping would still give off signs. The stalagmite seemed sturdy, but whenever he landed, bits of sand would shake off from it, which Fang Rui had unexpectedly noticed. Fang Rui wasn't nearly as bored as he appeared. He had been very focused. Otherwise, how could he have noticed such a tiny detail? The shaking that he had produced from landing couldn't compare to when he crashed into the stalagmite due to the Dragon Wave. The bits of sand that fell off would be much smaller, yet Fang Rui had still noticed him. Your biggest mistake is playing dirty in front of me. A message jumped out in the chat. His words were quite domineering, but when you thought about it more carefully, all of that loftiness seemed to disappear. Wasn't he basically saying that I'm dirtier than you are? ... There was no such thing as appearing imposing when playing dirty, yet Fang Rui had made it sound that way. Fang Rui was indeed very dirty. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1607. Everything Hitting. Audio source: WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1607. Everything Hitting. Translator: Nomyami. Editor: Nomyami. Yup, you're dirtier than me. Du Ming unexpectedly replied back to Fang Rui immediately. He seemed quite eager and quite happy to acknowledge it. Fuck. You can't lose, even if it's in being dirty. Lu Boyuan jumped out of his seat. He had been feeling rather unhappy because of his defeat in the group arena. Just when he was feeling particularly sad, he saw Du Ming admitting that he couldn't compare to his opponent and couldn't bear it. As for what was being compared, that wasn't the point. Well, Fang Minghua caught. From the way Tang Rou plays, I don't think she's very appreciative of people who play dirty, Jiang Botao said. Fang Rui hit to him right where it hurts. Fang Minghua said. That's why he immediately made things clear. Jiang Botao said. If that's all he's concerned about, how is he going to win? Lu Boyuan was very dissatisfied with how Du Ming was letting his emotions affect the match, especially in one as crucial as the finals. Don't worry. Jiang Botao patted Lu Boyuan's back. He's very focused right now. Even if he's thinking of Tang Rou, all that will be on his mind is to play his very best. Have trust in him. Lu Boyuan still wanted to say something, but when he saw a new development happening on stage, he was able to restrain himself. After Du Ming replied back to Fang Rui, he immediately counterattacked. There was no dirtiness, only righteousness. He turned to face Boundless Sea. Downwind sword slash. Sword light flew out. Moon Luring Frost had just crashed into a wall after getting hit by Dragon Wave. His entire body was shaking, making it very difficult for him to attack accurately. Even so, Du Ming let out an attack. The Downwind Sword Slash collided with Boundless Sea's Chi. Blade Masters dealt physical damage, while Chi Masters' Chi dealt magic damage. Physical against magical. It was much harder to calculate which one had higher priority. Boundless Sea had fired a Spirit Reaches to the Rainbow, a Chi Master awakening skill. Its might didn't need to be said. On the other hand, Downwind Sword Slash was a Blade Master skill with very high priority. When the two skills collided, there was no interaction between them. The Downwind Sword Slash moved right past the Chi, striking Boundless Sea. The Spirit Reaches to the Rainbow continued its journey forward, hitting Moon Luring Frost. Hit. Moon Luring Frost was hit again. Fang Rui had accounted for how far Moon Luring Frost would bounce back after crashing into the stalagmite. His attack had been extremely precise. However, Fang Rui hadn't thought that Du Ming would send out an attack of his own in these circumstances. It was a Downwind Sword Slash too. Unfortunately, Du Ming was just a bit too slow. Because Moon Luring Frost had been hit by Dragon Wave, his attack speed and attack power had been reduced. As a result, despite beautifully executing the Downwind Sword Slash, it wasn't as powerful nor as fast as it should have been. Even so, it wouldn't be easy for Boundless Sea to dodge it. The execution from Du Ming had been too on point. Fang Rui wouldn't be able to avoid it unless he used a skill. As a result, instead of dodging, he blocked. Fang Rui was able to respond in time due to the attack's slowed speed. Boundless Sea pushed out with his palms. Chi gathered in front of him and then quickly enlarged, forming a Chi wave shield. Pi. Chi Wave Shield wasn't a material object. However, when the downwind sword slash hit it, the collision still made a sound. The immaterial Chi Wave Shield was like a material object, and it shattered just like one. He had blocked it, but Fang Rui still felt a bit of lingering fear from the attack. The downwind sword slash had been slowed because of the dragon wave, which gave him enough time to form a Chi Wave Shield. The downwind sword slash had been less powerful as well, which made it just weak enough for his Chi Wave Shield to resist it. If the downwind sword slash had been faster or stronger, Boundless Sea would have taken a huge blow. Although Boundless Sea was able to block the attack, because he had to deal with it, he wasn't able to continue his combo on Moon Luring Frost. As a result, one Moon Luring Frost recovered from the strike from Spirit Reaches to the Rainbow. He used triple slash to close in onto Boundless Sea. Chi Masters had close-ranged capabilities, but close combat wasn't their specialty. Against a Blade Master, who specialized at close combat, most Chi Masters would choose to run away. But Fang Rui was a dirty Chi Master. He seemed to be the type of person who would avoid these sorts of disadvantaged situations, yet he made a surprising move. Spiral Chi Kill. Boundless Sea didn't retreat. He stood his ground and let out a Spiral Chi Kill. The spiraling Chi instantly enveloped a large area in front of Boundless Sea. Du Ming didn't go into it. He just happened to be on his third slash of his triple slash, so he changed directions and slid past the Spiral Chi Kill. Without pause, he slashed with his sword, using the fastest Blade Master attack possible, the level 75 skill, Meteor Form. But this time, before the Meteor Form arrived, it lost its radiance. Moon Luring Frost's right hand was caught by Boundless Sea's left hand. Empty-handed blade block. It wasn't a Chi Master skill. This was the skill Fang Rui had chosen to put on his weapon. Every player would take advantage of the extra skill that they had. Because not only was it another tool, it was an unknown to the opponent. When used correctly, its first usage in a fight would always shine. Ye Zhu was able to take advantage of this principle almost limitlessly because of his unspecialized character and his special weapon. He could use a total of 12 different skills for the first time. Other classes were different. Everyone only had one opportunity, and because the range of possibilities was much smaller compared to an unspecialized, the opponent could sometimes guess what it was. It wasn't the case today, though. Su Muchung's Electronic Eye and Lu Boyuan's Cloud-Grasping Fist had been used to great effect on their first use. Su Muchung had used Electronic Eye to finish off Jiang Botao effortlessly. Lu Boyuan had used Cloud-Grasping Fist to successfully close in on Dancing Rain, giving himself the upper hand at the start. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to convert that advantage into a win. Now, Fang Rui had chosen empty-handed blade block, and it too was put to great effect. Fang Rui had predicted that Du Ming would easily dodge his Spiral Chi Kill and had used the empty-handed blade block in advance. Which was how he had been able to block Meteor Form, the Blade Master's fastest attack. It was a dismantle skill. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Block and then throw. Even if it was only level 1, this basic structure would always exist. Boundless Sea blocked the attack and then hit Moon Luring Frost's stomach. If this skill was used aggressively enough, the throw would send the opponent flying back. However, Boundless Sea had punched very softly. Moon Luring Frost didn't move an inch after taking the punch. However, Du Ming's expression had already changed. Fang Rui had given up on the explosiveness of the throw to minimize the throw effect, so he could follow up with his own class's offensive moves. Du Ming had no way of dodging because with the throw, Boundless Sea's hand was already touching his stomach. The difference between Chi Masters and other classes when they attacked was that Chi Masters didn't need to make any arm or wrist movements to produce a force. Their attacks relied mainly on Chi, which flowed from their inner body. Since his hand was already on Moon Luring Frost, he could immediately attack. The Chi quickly traveled from his body to his hands far faster than Moon Luring Frost could swing his arms. Pulse Break. Break Intelligence. Break Intelligence lowered the opponent's intelligence stat, which reduced the opponent's magic attack power and magic resistance. Chi Masters dealt magic damage. Thus, the purpose of this skill was to drastically lower Moon Luring Frost's weak magic resistance even further so he could maximize his DPS towards him. Once the Pulse Break went into effect, the real offense began. It started with a gentle cloud-pushing palm, followed by a spiral Chi rush. The combo was a very standard one. Not a bit of dirtiness could be seen. For the final blow, he ended with Qigong Blast. After a standard combo, he finished perfectly with a level 75 skill. Fang Rui didn't do anything new with his comboing. He ended it with a reliable Qigong Blast, pouring Chi into Moon Luring Frost. The light armor worn by Moon Luring Frost trembled from the violent Chi. As his body flew back, blood spurted out from Moon Luring Frost's mouth. "Admit it, you can't beat me not just in dirtiness," Fang Rui taunted arrogantly. His attacks had been extremely efficient. Apart from the spirit reaches to the rainbow that missed, all of his other attacks had landed on Moon Luring Frost. All of it had taken place within 1 or 2 exchanges, yet Moon Luring Frost had already lost 54% of his health. He only had 34% remoring. As for his Boundless Sea, Fang Rui's Boundless Sea hadn't lost any health. He was at a perfect 100% health. The entire stadium was dead silent. That shameless and despicable bastard, who just sat there behind a stalagmite in the beginning, was somehow dominating Du Ming, who was playing incredible today. Du Ming had shown that he was in amazing form during his match against Su Mucheng. No. Even in this match, that downwind sword slash showed how well he was playing. Even so, Fang Rui was completely overwhelming him. Moon Luring Frost climbed onto his feet after getting blown back by the Qigong Blast and immediately counterattacked. A trace of blood still hung from his mouth due to the damage from the Chi. Isn't he being too impatient? Has he lost his cool? It was hard not to think these thoughts seeing Du Ming's impatience. However, Fang Rui felt a shiver down his spine. He knew best that Du Ming immediately counterattacking was the biggest threat to him right now. This bastard. He really is playing well today. Fang Rui couldn't help but admit it. End chapter.